Ravi Uppal is joining me right now. He's Managing Director, Group CEO, JSPL. Mr. Uppal, thank you very much for your time. Good morning. Prashant this side. We chatted before the budget. You told me you were expecting a spending push from the government. That has not happened. They're stuck to 3.5%. To fund a fair bit of the social sector, rural focus, there has been some tinkering increase in income tax rates, surcharge, cess, etc. on India Inc. What's your first take, sir?
Well, I think the way the government has maintained the financial prudence, at the same time they have not compromised when it comes to spending money on infrastructure. Because if you take, for example, the government's total expenditure, the planned and the non-planned, both of them have gone up by nearly 15%. And at the same time, if you look at the other infrastructure like rail and roads put together, they have gone up by nearly 27%. They have proposed a total budget of 218,000 crores for road and rails combined together, which is really a good news. The only thing which has happened is the theater of activity has been shifted from the urban centers towards the rural and the farm sector. And I think that's a very good change, a very good structural change. They are going to build roads, they are going to build, the irrigation systems, low-income housing. All of them, translate well for the construction sector as well as the core sectors like cement and steel. So all in all, I would say that we have a very positive view on the budget. It was a challenge to maintain a balance between the financial prudence at the same time and make sure that the expenditure on development projects, is also kept up. And I think the finance minister had tried to do a very good job trying to strike a balance between the two.
Which in financial year 17 is only 4%. Last year it was 20%.
Well, that if you look at the total spend on expenditure, that is quite up. It's not only the percentage, the absolute numbers which also matter. I think all in all, infrastructure is going to get a fairly good boost. The only thing is that the budget didn't have any big cheer for the corporate India. That we were expecting the tax rates to really come down because the corporate sector has been under stress and there has been very little investment from the corporate sector, private corporate sector, and the government is very keen that the private sector should participate directly or through PPP. That will happen only when their own savings are good, and one way to achieve that was to reduce the tax rate which the finance minister had promised earlier. That's something which hasn't unfortunately happened.
So the absolute amount is important, but the point is the spend on rural. There are so many heads of rural that one is difficult to. They don't provide a consolidated number in the budget, but our estimates are that rural spend of the government is increasing about 11%. Right, year on year. But if you look at the capital expenditure, that growth is only 4%. That's the point I was sort of making.
Yeah, well, I don't know how you look at these numbers, but my view is that even in the rural sector, if you combine all the spends put together, what was started last year plus what we want to superbid on last year's expenditure, all total adds up to a good number. Prashant, I think the more important thing is how well we implement what we intend to do. I think, for example, how much did we really achieve on the initiatives that we announced last year? That is the kind of thing which is not known. And once again, we have said whether, we're going to spend a lot more, whether we spend 4% or do more than that. I think the implementation is where the key lies.
For your business, Mr. Uppal, any changes you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, well, as far as steel sector is concerned, the only news which has come is that government is putting, 200 rupees extra cess on the coking coal and the thermal coal, which is going to burden us further. At this point of time, we obviously didn't want anything to be done whereby the cost of production of steel goes up. So that, of course, is not a positive thing. On the other hand, the good news for the mining sector is that low-grade fines and lumps, for that the export duty has been withdrawn. I think it's a big respite for the mining industry because these kind of fines of low grade, which is 58 grade or below, they were actually only sort of huge dumps lying there unutilized because we don't use them, but there are export markets like China where these kind of fines can be sold. So I think that's a good news for the mining sector. And as far as the power sector is concerned, as I mentioned earlier, that the 200 rupees cess was uncalled for. You know, we have to understand the bulk of our power generation still comes from thermal power sector. And if you continue to add, you know, more and more cess to that, the cost to consumer is going to increase. 200 rupees, to my mind, would increase the cost of production by about 15 to 16 paisa. So on one hand, government is saying that they want to reduce the cost of energy. On the other hand, this kind of cess, you know, goes completely against that idea. So I think energy must be made more economical, and coal is something we can't shy away from. So I think that those people who are in the coal-based power generation, they're going through a lot of stress, because on one side, government is tightening the environmental norms, rightfully so, which is going to entail a lot of expenditure for the power units. On the other hand, if they increase the cess on coal, that's going to directly increase the cost of energy production, which of course is not a very good news.
Any impact? I mean, how will this play out now? So for power companies, how will it play out? So cost goes up, but gets passed on. How does it work?
Well, that remains to be. Well, Prashant, that remains to be seen, because we are in a competitive market. Obviously, every producer will try to see that you know, he keeps the adverse impact of this to the bare minimum and passes on, you know, the minimum possible cost to the consumers. But some part of it simply cannot be kept away from. And I just hope, because last year only we had a 200 rupees cess, now we have doubled it, so we don't know where it's all going to stop. So I think this is something government should seriously think about.
Mr. Uppal, thank you very much, sir. It's a pleasure having you with us here and getting that reaction post the budget now. Thank you indeed. Take a quick break here. We are coming back in 2 minutes. You'll hear from Neelkant Mishra and Saurabh Mukherjee when we return. Neelkant Mishra is head of research. Credit Suisse. Saurabh Mukherjee is head of equity at Ambit Capital. We are back with both of them.